welcome to my shot-by-shot analysis of the new Ghostbusters trailer, which is currently being torn to shreds on the internets. I've seen many of the arguments against this film. I'm going to try and address them as we go through the trailer. I think some of them hold a little water, but I think most of them are just people upset that this is an all-female cast, which is really unfortunate, but also very easily avoidable if they had just made the team men and women, as I said in my initial reaction to this trailer. But I loves it, and I love going over these trailers with you guys, shot by shot, because there's always such interesting things that I discover. I get to share it with you, and then we get to talk about it. And the new Ghostbusters trailer is no exception. So let's get started. All right, lots of cool stuff that I discovered. I'm so excited to tell you about it. All right, so let's see here. So we start off, poor Sony. First the hack, now I'm already seeing the Fantastic Four comparisons, which is so unfair. So here they're referencing the original movie, as you can see. Great shot. It's funny, though, that they play up New York City so much here. They're saying, 4 scientists save New York City. We'll pause it here for just a second. You can see the original firehouse there. But it's really funny because a lot of this movie was shot in Boston. So they didn't even shoot the movie in New York. They obviously did some pickups. But for the most part, when you watch Ghostbusters, you might be like, where is that? I'll tell you where it is. It's in Boston. But I think this firehouse is going to come in just a few moments later on in the trailer. But I think that it's interesting they're alluding so heavily to the original. This was first billed as a reboot, a straight reboot. But it seems to me like a sequel, like they're going to pick up 30 years later where the story left off. Maybe they're going to ignore Ghostbusters 2. Maybe they're not. I would advise them to ignore it. But I think that's a wise choice. I wouldn't wipe away the original. And I'll tell you why I think they might be referencing it in just a moment. Moving on. So this summer, I love this. I love it so much. Now that's great. All right, so this is so cool. Let's stop there. Now the reason I like this is because it shows that this is kind of like an underground movement. You know, it really plays up that this isn't an official team. This isn't like something the city or a corporation put together. This is just 4 people who decided, as we see in this trailer, that they are uniquely suited to combat an evil that is plaguing New York City, right? So I think that's great. I also like the commentary. Like, maybe this isn't even talking about the Ghostbusters. We see that the city is overrun with ghosts, so someone decides to graffiti that on the subway, just being like, yeah, I don't want no ghosts in New York City. And maybe that's how they come up with it for their logo. Maybe they and I hope they find an individual and pay them the rights for their artwork. But anyway, I think it's a really clever way to update the material, while still, of course, alluding to the original. Now this, a new team will answer the call. I love that so much. And I just want to take a moment here. You can't ignore the the feminist aspect. And there's no other word to use, even though that word has become a dirty word. But you can't ignore that aspect of this movie because they made it an all-female team. So a new team will answer the call, though. I have to say, for any woman who likes blockbusters, and there are a lot of us, as evidenced by the box office, we just want to fight the bad guy too, with the cool weapons and stuff. And we don't want to be like, move over, boys. This is how it's done. And it's unfortunate this movie has that element to it because it's an all-female cast. But it's just everybody wants to pick up a proton pack and take down a ghost, right? And women are no different. So as a female viewer, that is very, very cool to me. All right. Now this is great. Now this is a really good homage, but yet update of the original. Of course, that took place in the New York Public Library, and our original, the 3 characters, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Harold Ramis, and you can kind of basically see them there. The female counterparts were called to investigate some paranormal activity at the New York Public Library. And this seems to be, like in New York City, there are a couple of houses that are, have been maintained from, way back in the day. So, just like basically, historical society. So this is what this looks like to me. Looks like to me. And I think you can really tell their personalities very easily. It's funny that Kate McKinnon is eating Pringles. Brad Pitt, throughout the Ocean's 11 movies, his gag was that he was always eating. So I'm always a little bit hesitant whenever I see an actor do that ever since, because I feel it's like an actor's gimmick. Like, what can I do with my hands? What can my character be up to? I know, they're always eating. So I kind of feel like that's what Kate McKinnon's doing there. I think that's her one off mark in the entire trailer. Otherwise, she's spectacular. All right, now look at this. Now, when you see the ghost, I'm going to stop it right there. This is the ghost in the painting, which is very interesting. So clearly, I think that's just a nice little touch, and it's obviously the haunting is someone whoever's house this is. So I think that's pretty cool. I think that's really interesting. I hope she comes out of the painting. Always a cool ghost moment. Now, some people are talking about the visual effects for this movie. I think they're very good. Now, yes, they're not kind of like the old school special effects that were in the first Ghostbusters, which were pretty impressive at that time, and even they hold up. Even today, those effects look good. But because they were old school, they have a little bit more of a realistic effect where they're using. This is a very day-glow heavy movie, a little bit like Suicide Squad, actually. Lots of colorful lights, which I like. I think they look really cool. But I don't think that, I've seen some Scooby-Doo comparisons, which I think is unfair. I think the visual effects look very, very good, and I think they're trying to make it fun, and I think they're trying to make it all ages. I think they want this to be a movie that everyone goes and sees, that people take, that families can go to. That's very important. The family box office is huge. So I think they obviously don't want to just be a chick flick, which they have to really avoid. So I think at the very least, if they can get women and families, that's pretty awesome, right? So I think that the ghosts look very cool. And I like how on the ghosts, all the ghosts are sort of see-through, and you can see their skeletons coming through them as well. Like even there, you can see the pelvic bone and the ribs, which I think is awesome. So I like it quite a bit. It also reminds me a lot of the Haunted Mansion, which has a lot of fans. So you can't really say anything bad about Haunted Mansion visual effects, although the movie was not good. But I don't think this is that. Now, this is a great moment. She looks peaceful, and she's trying to talk to her. She obviously doesn't know she's in a Ghostbusters movie. That's great. I love that, and I like that they're filming it. I think this was a great first moment. I wonder also how they did that, because it looks a little bit like a practical effect. Now, someone said, that goo, she says, that stuff was everywhere. It was in every crevice. And someone said they didn't like that gross-out humor, which I think is unfair. I think that's a double standard. There are a lot of gross-out comedies these days that do very well, so I don't see why it's a problem to have it here. Although, Melissa McCarthy is going to get it in some other crevices, as we're going to find out. She's going to have slime coming out of everywhere, which I thought was one of the coolest moments in the trailer, which we'll get to momentarily. Now, here, this is very important. Right there, this is the firehouse, which I think is fascinating. And maybe this is Kate McKinnon's character's lab, and maybe she is a descendant of Egon, right? She kind of has an Egon look. She's kind of got the Egon hair. I think she's clearly the Egon of the group. So I would love it if at least she had some tie to the original Ghostbusters, and so she still has that firehouse, and that's where she's doing her research. So I think that's pretty awesome, because that looks just like the firehouse from the original movie. So I hope that's a way to tie the two films together. All right. Now they're saying she's talking about everybody's specialties, and we've been studying the paranormal their whole life. Now this is great. I want to talk about Leslie Jones's character, Patty, as you can see from her necklace. A lot of people have said, this movie is really inappropriate, and that they have made the one black character not a scientist, and that she is like, just the subway worker. Well, first of all, I think that it's really great that, there are a lot of people who work in the MTA in New York City. It's not only a very important job to the city, the infrastructure of the city, but it's a dangerous job, especially today with terrorism, and we have like a very aggressive mentally ill homeless problem, and you hear stories all the time about MTA workers being assaulted and having to deal with really difficult situations. So it's so nice, I think, to spotlight that part of the city and that element of the city that so rarely gets to step up to the forefront. So I think it's important to remember that, and also that that Leslie Jones is portraying somebody that actually exists, right? I mean, there are lots of different types of people. It would be like me saying, like, why aren't all the women in this movie supermodels? That's really annoying. I mean, everybody in this movie is trying to represent different types of real women that actually exist. And this is, I think, let's not forget that there are a number of black women who do work for the MTA, and they should be celebrated and should be seen in a positive light. And I think that this also, they've chosen things for Leslie Jones that fit very well with her style of comedy. If you want a black female scientist, like they're making a movie about the black female scientists at NASA with Taraji P. Henson and I believe Octavia Spencer, that's who you hire. Leslie Jones isn't going to play, that's just not going to work. I mean, I'm not saying she couldn't, but that's not going to work with her style of humor. And I think that she's perfectly cast, and they've really done a nice job, complimenting her brand. So I think it's great. I really think it's actually a huge step forward and really nice. So I feel bad that people are turning it into a negative. I think that you want to portray a group in all of its different facets. You don't want to only present, quote unquote, the ideal. But again, I think that's unfair to everybody who works in the MTA to be like, you're not good enough to represent the black community. I think that's horrible. All right, I just had to say that. I mean, look at her character. She went to investigate a sighting in the subway. She didn't have to do that. Clearly there was a problem, and she went and she took care of it. And I think that's really commendable. All right, so you can see more cool ghosts. They're very see-through. You can see on some of them, you can see the bones, and some you can't. You can see like a distinct this almost seems 1920s. There seems like the ghosts are taking things back in time, and there's an even cooler thing coming up. All right, so moving on. Boston. That's not New York City. See more cool lights. I love the proton packs. Look at that. That's amazing. I love that. Now right there, I had to freeze it there because every woman has done this. Every woman has done this. That could be me, and I'm sure it could be a number of you. Guys don't really do this that much, but women love to, women love straws because it doesn't mess up our lipstick. You might not be aware of that. That's why women use straws. And then also, we always like to chew on them and probably drink our soda longer than, past when we finished it. So her just playing around with her soda straw, I just related to it so intensely. And I love that she winked. I just thought it was fantastic. It was so relatable. All right. I think Kate McKinnon is going to rule this movie. I think everyone looks good though. So that's awesome. And now that's great. This is a callback to the first movie. This actually is not the fire station anymore. We're going to see in just a moment that they've moved some of Kate McKinnon's things to the upstairs above the Chinese restaurant where they've moved their headquarters to, which I think was actually a good idea. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But what I love about this helmet is this reminds me of the helmet, of course, that they put on Rick Moranis in the first Ghostbusters. So I thought that was a nice, subtle callback. Now here's Leslie Jones. Now I like that, she didn't answer an ad. I like, that's another thing. They're updating the Ernie Hudson character. And Ernie Hudson, as you might recall, came into the movie very late. But it looks like Leslie Jones is going to come in early, which I think is excellent. I think she should be a full-fledged member of the team. And I love that she takes it upon herself to join this team and to tell them that they're missing an important aspect. They're missing, a New York historian. She says she knows the city. I think they should have made it more clear in this trailer to avoid some of the negative backlash that they're getting. But Leslie Jones's character isn't just know the streets, but she knows the history of the city because she cares about the place that she lives. And I think that's awesome. So she's like, I've seen these Ghostbusters people around, or I've heard about them. I think they need me. And I think it's wonderful that she's a real go-getter and that she goes and, finds herself a place on this team. So the only thing I don't like is I think that this setting, the way the Chinese restaurant looks upstairs, it looks not so great. It looks a little bit cheap, a little bit like a sitcom, and it's the one area where I feel the movie looks a little subpar. And this movie can't afford to slip anywhere because there's so much hate against it. I love her in her MTA booth. I love it. I just don't understand the dislike. She looks adorable. She looks awesome. She looks really relatable. And I can imagine her being like, I'm working my shift. And then everybody starts running out of the subway and she goes to investigate. That's a hero. All right. And I love that she said, I can get a car. This is like an Eddie Murphy moment, which is pretty awesome. By the way, a number of people are saying, this is just like an SNL sketch with a better budget. But, you have to remember, the first Ghostbusters movie was an SNL movie with a better budget. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd coming right out of that movie, of that show at the time, very popular. And I think that's really important to remember. And so I think that's really unfair. All right. And I think it's just great. I like that she gets the car. I like that Kate McKinnon loves it. That's awesome. That's so funny. As I said in my initial reaction to the trailer, these characters, these four women, interact like a group of women actually would interact. Not the way Hollywood usually portrays them, which is like a sorority with some weird hierarchy. This is what an actual group of female friends acts like. And I think that's really cool. I think that's so nice to see that depicted on the big screen. Oh my God, that restaurant has a bee. Oh, that's so horrible. I don't think I could work there. That's hilarious. All right. Maybe that's why they let them. I'm sure maybe it has a bee because they're there. All right, so there's the restaurant. That's fantastic. I like that they spray painted no parking anytime on their own door. The restaurant is clearly functioning, so I think that's you can see somebody in the window there. And so I don't know. I think it would be, Chinese restaurants are very fragrant, so I hope they like Chinese food. But I think it'll be interesting. Again, that's the only thing I'm not crazy about because I just think the setting and the red walls don't look so great. Red is a tough color on film. Red and yellow, actually, and that's the colors of that restaurant. So this is great. Now, a lot of people like this joke. This is like one of the only jokes that landed unanimously, and that's like, who says let's go, right? Like, usually in the movies, one person always is like, it's usually like the bigger star, and I guess here, that's funny that it's actually Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy having the problem of who to say it, because they are the two biggest stars. But something I really liked about this is that they have a bag. They have a duffel bag full of their stuff. Now, women always have to carry around handbags, but I think that anybody who was a Ghostbuster would need a bag with all your paraphernalia in it. So I like that it's also got a high voltage warning sign on the strap, and I just think it's like, it just also is relatable. Like, you can just imagine if you're a Ghostbuster, you would have to like drag a bunch of crap around, right? I mean, it's not an easy job. So I like it quite a bit. They should get like a little wheelie suitcase maybe that would make it a little easier. And again, I can relate to this because I have a duffel bag that doesn't have any wheels and carrying it around sucks. Okay, so they look great. And so you can see Leslie Jones is part of the group, like it seems pretty early on, which is excellent. Although who still wears a watch? But I guess if you're fighting ghosts, I'm looking at Kristen Wiig. I guess you want to make sure that none of your electronics might have a problem. All right. So there's the gag. I love the things when they're driving at night because you know what? It looks like a real Ghostbusters movie. It looks like a real action comedy, which I think is fantastic. It also has a little 80s vibe too, which I think is neat. I mean, that's what's so great about Spy. Spy looked like a spy movie, and I think that Paul Feig is really great in the authenticity that he brings to his projects and that he tries to make them seem like the actual movies that they are instead of just like a cheap imitation. All right, so let's see here. Moving on. Now, Slimer. Now, this is important. I'm sure many of you are like, what's more important than Slimer? So we'll look at him for just a second again there. Adorable. Oh, and you can see the hot dog carts there. And, of course, we all know Slimer likes hot dogs from the first movie. All right, so now this is really important. This is an entirely CGI Times Square, which I think is very neat. Now, you'll see that it starts out like a current modern Times Square. And this is funny because you can see a Papa John's there. There's no Papa John's in Times Square. So they clearly sold advertising space to go with, who's willing to pay for it, like the Hostess Twinkies, rather than the billboards that are actually in Times Square. But look at this. The ghosts, as you go along, the ghosts are changing the billboards to be from a different era, which is so cool. Like you can see Taxi Driver there, a chop suey restaurant, a liquor store. That's not modern Times Square. You can see a Boris Karloff movie over there, Tommy. I think that's really, really neat. So that's a great thing. And you can see all the ghosts there gathering in Times Square. So I think that's awesome. Now, they're talking about that they have a villain, that someone has created a device that's amplifying this, spectral energy. And I think that's really cool. So I'm curious. Some people said, wouldn't it be neat if Bill Murray was the villain? But I have mixed feelings about that. I think if Bill Murray was the villain, it would only emphasize taking this franchise away from the original guys. I don't know if I would do that. I'd like it if he was a ghost, maybe. I loved this bit. This is pure Kate McKinnon. That's so funny. I like that she's goofing around on the job. That's hilarious. Her delivery is excellent. Now, right there, this is funny. There's a Papa John's. That Papa John's doesn't exist. Neither does that Revlon sign. I like the Beetlejuice pants on that guy. That's awesome. Now this is so cool, right? They've got their weapons that they're going to deploy, and they look like they mean business. Although this is very CGI. This looks like it's done on a green screen to me. So that looks awesome. So I love that the guns pop out. I like that they've kind of like upgraded the weapons. They're not just proton packs. So the guns come out. Awesome. She's having a little bit of a Deadpool moment here. Look at them. Now look at this. I like that Melissa McCarthy has like this cool, like almost like taser, like short range weapon to fight with. I think that's really neat. That's a really neat idea. This is very Haunted Mansion-y to me right here. The ride, not the horrible movie. Now this I love. I love this shot. Let's look at them light it up. Don't cross the streams, ladies. That's fantastic. That's a really great shot. I love that shot. All right, now here, Chris Hemsworth shows up. Now, they say that the ghosts can possess people. Some people were like, oh, you got to save that for the movie. I think the spy trailers were cut together really well. I'm sure that they're saving plenty for the... Paul Feig, I'm sure, is very heavily involved in this. He's earned it at this point after his successes with Bridesmaids, The Heat, which I didn't love, but then Spy as well. So I'm sure that he's made that this is okay. Now, Chris Hemsworth, I think because he's possessed, I will bet... Well, I don't know if I want to bet money, but I will bet you that he maybe tries to seduce one of the Ghostbusters when he's possessed. I'm sure that will happen. Why else would he have his tighty-whitey undershirt on, right? I hope he's very good in this movie. I would have played him up actually more in this trailer. And then she gets possessed. That's hilarious. I love that. That's so disgusting. And it's so funny. I love that they went there. You know, it's really important to always raise the bar with comedy and raise the stakes and just go for it. And that is going for it. It's so, I just love that. That's fantastic. So I like that. I think that, you know, it's really great when an actor can sell a visual effects idea without the aid of visual effects. Like, you can clearly tell that she's possessed. So I think that's neat. So this is fantastic. They're being attacked by their own. Now, I love this. I love when her head goes around in an homage to The Exorcist. I think that's really clever. And I love that Leslie Jones freaks out because, you know, like, she's possessed by the devil. Like, that's how Leslie Jones takes it, which, you know, makes sense when she does a move from Exorcist. And so I love, I'm glad they pulled Kate McKinnon back in. And I love that, as I said, she ghost slaps her. So I think that was great. That's what I said in my live reaction. And then, of course, doesn't realize that the ghost came out and continues to slap her. The power of, although I have to say, it's tough to do exorcism jokes because they had one of the best exorcism jokes I've ever seen, and This Is the End, with when they were trying to exorcise Jonah Hill, and they were like, the power of Christ compels you, and I love that Jonah Hill was like, does it really? I don't find it all that compelling, and I was like, that is a fantastic joke. So ever since then, I'm like, I don't know if you can top that. And there's the Ghostbusters logo, the official one. Looks amazing. Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters! And I'm definitely going to see this in IMAX 3D. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. So I hope you liked some of the things that we discovered in the shot by shot. Also, if you're kind of worried about this movie and you've been upset about it, I hope that maybe by addressing some of your concerns, I helped you maybe feel a little better about it, or at least see another side of it, and that you can be a little more open to this movie. I hope it does well. It looks really good. And I think that this would be like the most egregious case yet of a movie being brought down just because people were upset about something, you know, about what it represented. It represents a good time. Yes, it would have been nice if they had one male Ghostbuster or two male Ghostbusters, but they don't. And I think these women look like they're doing a very good job. And I think that, it's frustrating. And also because I see a lot of the people who are calling for more diversity in film in terms of ethnicity, you know, turning on this movie, right? I mean, it's like everybody has to support each other, and I think that's really important too. All right, so anyway, that's my thoughts on the Ghostbusters trailer. Thank you for watching it again with me. I look forward to continuing the conversation down below, and you can check out some other episodes right now.